everyone, it's Emily. Today's video is going to be about books that I would reread. So basically books that I have enjoyed enough that for a reason or another one I would reread either soon or far in the future. I feel like I'm not someone that rereads book ever, except one thing. So I feel like for me to choose a few books was more of a challenge. Also, I didn't want to just say like, oh, all the Brandon Sanderson's book, because technically that's kind of true. So let's say that answer number one would be most Brandon Sanderson's book I would reread: Warbreaker or Elantris or The Mistborn Trilogy. Those are the three main books that I've read from him so far, and I would reread them. So let's count that as one answer, because otherwise we would spend a whole video on this. Also, I would be lying if I didn't start with this one. I mean, this has to be my most reread series ever, Harry Potter, J.K. Rowling. However, I'm planning on rereading them as illustrated version. I have yet to read them with the pictures, which I know is a little silly since I've had this actually for a little while on my shelves, but I'm looking forward to doing that. And when I started collecting them, I was already in the middle of my reread of these books, so I didn't want to go back and start over again. But since I finished rereading the series in January, I finished the 7th book. Next time I do that, I will be able to start with these ones. So far I have the first 3 ones, and if you don't know, they are going to be coming out with one every year. So I'm not planning on waiting another 4 years to read them all, but I'm definitely planning on restarting the reread with these ones. Definitely going to be doing that because I'm so excited. I mean, do you also reread Harry Potter very frequently? I am trying, every time I reread them, I try to see if Ike's book is still my favorite one and like in what order I would try to place them. And it's so difficult to choose like favorite ones and then the least favorite ones. Actually, choosing favorite ones is not the hardest, it's to choose the least favorite ones. I can never do it. The next book is something that is kind of surprising, not because it's surprising that I enjoy the book, it's just that it's so not my usual genre. It is a YA contemporary coming of age book. So whenever people say, oh, you know, you don't read a lot of YA, or like if I end up liking one, people are like, since when? This one has to be the best one I've read, like, I mean, at least ever since I started my channel. And it is I'll Give You the Sun by Jenny Nelson. This is such a great book, and I would totally reread this. You're following a pair of twins. There's one girl and a boy, and they stopped talking to each other in the last 2 years. So one of them you're following, actually the boy, when they're 13, I believe. This is like the past. And then whenever you go to the girl, it's like 2 years later, I believe they are 15, and they don't talk to each other. So you don't know what happened in between those 2 years between the two of them. And I loved how creative the writing was for both of them, actually. The writing style is completely different, and I feel like a lot of people might not like the writing, I guess, because of that. There's a lot of metaphors, but I really enjoyed it. The story's about coming of age, about grief. They lost their mom, and about the relationship, and it's just so beautiful. And towards the end, it definitely broke my heart, and I can't recommend this enough. I really enjoyed this, and I would totally reread this just to see if I still really like it. I read it in 2016, and it was like one of the first books that I read when I started my channel, and I feel like if I would go back to those books, I feel like a bunch of them I would end up giving a lower rating, but I'm pretty sure this one would still get a 5 stars. It was just so good. So yes, loved it. Another classic, which I had never reread until January, is Dark Materials Trilogy by Philip Pullman. And I have this gorgeous edition that has all 3 books in one. I had only read these in French when I was a kid, and I really liked them, but I didn't know if I was going to like them again as an adult, and still so good. They're still so good. So if you are an adult and you're kind of scared to go towards this, since I believe it is middle grade and then YA after the first book or something like that, I definitely still recommend reading this, because I feel like a lot of the plot went way above my head as a kid, and I would totally read this. Probably not anytime soon since I just did so in January, but I can't recommend this enough. I really loved it. I feel like that's the world I will want to go back to, since it's a YA fantasy world. So good. I just wish they had made great movies about that series, because it wasn't good. The book is actually something that I read recently, this year, for the first time. It is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. I've been talking about this book quite a bit, but it is a mystery with a sci-fi twist to it. You follow the main character, you're really thrown into the story, and it's a murder mystery. So every night at 11 or something, Evelyn Hardcastle dies. It's going to look like a suicide, but it's actually a murder, and the main character has to figure out what happened. The twist is that it's an event, there are multiple people there, and he has 8 days to figure it out, and each day he wakes up in a different body. So he doesn't know who his other bodies are, he doesn't know who is there trying to kill him, he doesn't know who is there to help him, and it's kind of confusing at first, but I really love how each character had a different personality, even though there was like the main person in them. And I kind of want to reread it knowing what I know after finishing it, you know what I mean? I feel like now that I know who is him too, it's going to be interesting to see it and read it all over again. I feel like very often when I read a murder mystery or thriller, I'm done with it. Like I will never reread it pretty much. But in this case, I was done with it and I basically wanted to restart it all over again. So can't recommend this enough. I would also reread Bird Box by Josh Malerman. This is a post-apocalyptic book, kind of horror. I'm kind of torn here because I really loved some bits of it. And then there were some other parts I didn't really care for and I wasn't satisfied with the ending. With that said, I feel like this is really popular, not necessarily on BookTube, in the rest of the world. It seems to be a fairly popular book for a good reason. Basically, you don't know what happened. At one point, whenever people see something outside, they go crazy, kill people, kill themselves. So people have to like stay inside, cover their windows, and if they do go outside, they have to cover their eyes and not look, because if they look, again, they're gonna go crazy, kill people, and then kill themselves. So I really enjoyed the bits that were like while it's happening. And then you also see a little bit later, and then like the present tense is basically in the future of that. And you follow the main character and she has to go somewhere. She's trying to exit the house that she's been stuck in for the last 4 years with the 2 babies that are now 4 years old or something. And it was still interesting. It's just that I kind of want to reread it just for my favorite bits because it was really stressful and I did enjoy it. It's just that the ending wasn't satisfying and I kind of want to like reread it and like imagine my perfect ending maybe. Anyway, I definitely recommend this and I do want to reread this. Partially to reread my favorite bits, partially kind of hoping weirdly enough that the ending is going to be more satisfying the second time. I feel like that's the weirdest reason between all those books. The next 2 books are kind of weird for me to add in this list because I've been really vocal about me not liking romance. I just can't deal. However, these 2 are romance and I would reread them probably in the moments that I'm in the mood for them. I guess sometimes I'm also trash for some romance. However, not everything. The first one is a popular book, but I would only reread the second book. It's the second book in the series, and I'm not planning on ever touching the first book, and nor the third book, nor anything else that will be coming out in that series. But I would totally reread A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This was definitely the best in the series. If you don't know, it's a YA fantasy series and you do have to read the first one. I've been asked quite often if they have to read the first book before the second one. You do. But the painfulness of the horrible romance is worth it to get to the second one. I really enjoyed the relationship between the characters in here. There's like a group of friends that is really awesome. The fantasy bits and like the heist and everything makes a lot more sense than, again, the first book. And there were definitely still some weaknesses here. A few things that were kind of inappropriate. The sex scenes are a little and the ending is a little bit too convenient. However, I really enjoyed it. I ended up devouring this and I feel like I would enjoy rereading it, surprisingly. So yeah, I don't think a lot of people expected me to mention this, but I would actually read this. And then last but not least, it's a series that I devoured. I could not put them down and I feel like I haven't been mentioning a lot on my channel, so I kind of wanted to give it a shout out and I would totally reread this. And it is the Winter's Curse Trilogy by Mary Rutkowski. This is a fantasy romance. I'm not sure if there's more fantasy or romance in here, so warning you. But I ended up really enjoying it. The world is interesting, there's a lot of political intrigue. I believe between the 3 books, the second one is my favorite one. It's also the one that breaks your heart the most, obviously. I feel like whenever there's a romance, it's like, you know, it starts in the first book, things get so difficult in the second one, and then the third one, things are like solved and everything. So the second one was definitely my favorite one, definitely the most heart-wrenching of them all. But if you are in the mood for a romance, but you still want a bunch of political intrigue and fantasy elements, that it's not straight up romance and you can pretend that you're reading it for the fantasy bits, read this one. So that's gonna be it for today's video. Please let me know in the comment section, what books would you reread? Do you have certain books that you read like every year or over and over again? Or are you someone that never rereads ever? Because I actually haven't reread any books since I started my booktube channel, but I feel like it's probably something that's gonna happen maybe next year, maybe eventually. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss any future videos. I will be putting on the screen of the videos that I've done that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.